Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. My name is Malescu and I'm the owner of Malescu law firm based in Miami, Florida, specializing in business, corporate and US immigration. We can assist you with all your immigration needs regardless of where you are currently located or where you plan to go in the United States. Today we are going to speak about one of our recent success stories for the E-2 visa, and that is an E-2 visa approval for an investment in an existing US business. But before we get started, please subscribe to our channel by clicking the bell button or the subscribe button. This E-2 visa case was for a complex investment in an existing US business. This complex E-2 visa case was approved at the US Consulate in Bucharest, Romania, for a Romanian investor residing abroad. The E-2 visa was approved for 5 years, which is the maximum amount of time allowed under the treaty between the United States and Romania, and it was approved without a request for further evidence despite its complexity. The total processing time from the moment we submitted the application until the interview and approval was 3 months. Now, not every E-2 visa case is a simple startup or purchase of a business. Sometimes there are complex E-2 visa cases, such as this specific case, where the investor invested in an existing US business that was already operating for over a decade and had revenues and had employees. But this goes to highlight the importance of booking a consultation with an immigration attorney and going through your specific circumstance and find which visa is best for you, which is what we did in this case. Initially, we were contacted for an L1 visa, and the consultation was specifically booked in order to discuss a potential L1 visa. But from the conversation with the investor and their goals and understanding the operation of this business, we concluded that the L1 visa was not a suitable visa for this specific investor at all, and in fact the investor had another option, in this case an E-2 visa, that they could pursue despite its complexity and see if that would be of success for them, and this has been the case. So instead of pursuing an L1 visa, the investor ended up pursuing an E-2 visa with a very complex case, and the E-2 visa was approved at the US Consulate in Romania. Now, in terms of the details of this case, the investor invested about $300,000 for its 50% share in the business. But the important part to remember is that the investor has been a 50% partner in this business for the past decade, and this business actually operated for the entire period, and it's still in operations, and the business already had employees. So part of the strategy involved documenting the investment and then making sure that the investment first is not marginal, and second of all, it is placed at risk. It is committed to the US business, which is quite challenging when that business is already running, already has contractors, has employees, and has many expenses on a monthly basis. In our E-2 visa application for this case, we addressed 3 primary challenges. 1. Proving new investment in an existing business. So in this case, based on the Department of State regulations and US immigration law, for the E-2 investor, we need to show investment in an existing business. Now, The investor in this case again was not buying equity, was not buying the 50% of the business, because the investor already had the 50% of the business from the day him and his business partner actually started the business. So in this case, we actually had to show that the money that the investor planned to contribute to the business was considered an investment in this new business, and we did so by using some direct investment and also retained earnings from the business itself, and worked with accountants to make sure we can actually calculate the retained earnings as part of the total investment. So basically, for the $300,000 that the investor put in the business, some of it came directly from the investor. About $100,000 came directly from the investor, and the rest was in the form of retained earnings. And for that part, again, we worked with the accountants to make sure we can actually calculate that as part of the entire investment in this existing business. Because the investor was not buying equity, they already had the equity, but they were making an additional investment in the US business. 2. The second challenge was proving that the investment was substantial. Now, we had to prove that the investment and the funds that were contributed to the business was substantial compared to the total value of this company, because this company was in existence for over 10 years at the time of E-2 application. So it's not as simple as just showing some bank accounts, because the company has significant revenues and significant assets. And in fact, we had to show that the money that were being contributed to the US business, these funds were substantial. The new investment was substantial in relation to the value of the company. So in this case, our in-house chartered financial analyst prepared the professional E-2 business valuation that showed the company's total fair market value. And based on that, we were able to show how the investment was substantial compared to the total fair market value of the company and of the investor's share in the business, using the proportionality test as directed by the Department of State and under the Department of State regulations. And the final challenge was to show that the funds were irrevocably committed and at risk. Now, because the business was already in existence, the question becomes, how come that the funds contributed were at risk when you could just use them to pay the expenses on a daily basis, so contributing to the day-to-day operations of the company. And in this case, we created a strategy, which was the goal of the company, to grow and to build a professional executive team and new line of products, and also expand into new territories, into new states. So we successfully were able to show that the funds were committed, because we were able to show the concrete steps that the investor took in order to take the business to the next level. And in this case, for this specific business, it meant an executive team and new lines of products, and also new territories. This case raises one very good question that many of you may ask, which is, why do you need an expert immigration lawyer to assist you with your visa case? Well, this is exactly what this case highlights. First of all, after doing your own research online, and oftentimes you may be doing it not only on Google, but you may be using ChatGPT or Grok or any other AI assistant in order to help you understand these visa types. And you may conclude, based on what you read, that you qualify for one type of visa, such as in this case the investor felt that they qualify for the L1. But then after a consultation with an immigration attorney, we were able to conclude that the L1 was actually not a good visa for this specific investor and their circumstances, and an L1 would have not worked in practice at all, despite the fact that maybe it was recommended like that by any of the AI applications, or the investor concluded on their own after researching everything that the L1 was a visa that was good for them. But after the consultation, the investor also understood and decided that type of visa was not good for them, but instead we were able to recommend another type of visa that was actually more suitable for the investor and their specific circumstances. So this is why it is very important to work with an expert immigration attorney, especially a lawyer that specializes in business immigration and investment immigration, to help you assess your circumstances and all the visas that are available to you, and then decide which avenue is right for you in terms of these visas, because there are many visas and it can become very confusing, and these AI applications will end up recommending you visas that in practice are not suitable for you, because they oftentimes sound easier in writing than in practice, and the writing has nothing to do with the actual practice. Okay, so that's one thing. And the second reason why it is so important to work with expert immigration lawyers is the fact that in complex cases, expertise like this E2 visa case, expertise is very important. We were able to overcome all the hurdles of the E2 visa requirements because of the expertise. We provided the E2 legal strategy for the case, but we also have in-house the team to facilitate the professional E2 business valuation to support the E2 legal strategy for the case, and also the comprehensive E2 business plan that also came together with the business valuation and the legal strategy. So all these aspects were taken into consideration by our team when we proceeded with this E2 visa case because of its complexity, and we addressed all the challenges before we even presented, or the investor presented, the E2 investor visa case at the US Consulate in Bucharest, Romania. Now, the interview also took approximately 30 minutes, but again, this E2 visa case was a complex visa case, so it was expected that the interview may take longer than the regular interviews, which are typically 10 to 15 minutes. And finally, an overview of the E2 visa. E2 visa is an investor visa, is a non-immigrant investor visa available to those of you who are citizens of E2 treaty countries. If you want to make an investment in a US business and come and live in the United States in order to run that business, you can obtain an E2 visa by investing in a startup business in the United States, or purchasing a business in the United States, or purchasing shares in an existing US business. The E-2 visa allows you to also bring your spouse and your children unmarried and under the age of 21 to the United States on the E-2 visa, and also you may be able to bring executives, managers and specialized knowledge employees from your country as well on an E-2 employee visa. This is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel, and if you need to get in touch with us, you have our contact information in this video and below this video. We will see you soon. Bye.